And then, when he looked up from his computer, he saw them. Wrapped around his wrists and ankles, thick and black, like spiders' webs. Cables. 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 Yes, my friends, it's Techtober, that wonderful time of year where big companies announce new products, YouTubers swoon, and we get to binge watch the whole thing. Today, I wanted to kick off my own Techtober with a roundup of the most ghastly tech tips I could think of. The kinds that involve ghosts. Well, okay, maybe not ghosts, but the ghosts of wires. Welcome to Tech Hacks. The first hack I want to show you is probably my favorite. Let me start by saying I really like wireless peripherals, such as the Logitech PowerPlay mat. If you haven't heard of it, basically it charges your mouse while you're using it, so you never have to worry about keeping the battery topped up. If they offered a PowerPlay compatible mouse with as many buttons as the Razer Naga Hex, I would go back to that in a heartbeat. But one kind of wireless peripheral that doesn't get as much love is wireless keyboards. I hate the idea of having to keep a keyboard charged up, and honestly, since they barely move on your desk, I'm not sure why a tech company hasn't thought of this already. A wirelessly charging keyboard. You can make one really easily, as long as your wireless keyboard is rechargeable and doesn't require standard batteries. On Amazon, you can buy these little Qi charging pads, which then plug into any style of port and can work with virtually every Qi charging mat. I found a pair of slim pads for pretty cheap on Amazon as well, and I'll leave a link to all of this in the description. Once you have these, all you have to do is cut up a large piece of cardboard to the thickness of your wireless charger and place a mouse mat over top of the whole thing. Then line it up with the charging port on the keyboard and cut out a hole right where the charging pad will go. You can optionally cut a second charging mat hole where you use your keyboard to type as well. These wireless charging pads are so low profile, you honestly can't even tell that they're on when you're using them. Now, whenever you're gaming, you can just top up your keyboard's battery on the fly. The best thing is, this doesn't hurt any functionality of your keyboard, meaning you can still plug it into your computer like normal. Playing games on a keyboard is fine and all when I'm at my desk, but what about when I want to play something a little more cinematic? If I want to play games on my couch, my options for a controller are fairly limited. Sure, I could still play with a mouse and keyboard, but options for that range from the impractical to the uncomfortable. What I really want is to be able to use a controller that goes from my couch to my computer without a big long wire harshing my mellow. Say hello to this, a Raspberry Pi Zero W. These cost around 20 bucks on Amazon for a starter kit, and with this, you're made in the shade. I use a program called VirtualHere, which has a server program on the Pi Zero and a client program on my computer. With that setup, any USB device I plug into my Pi Zero will automatically be detected as a USB device natively plugged into my client machine. It even works with webcams. Installing VirtualHere is super simple, and once you have it installed, it'll even automatically run itself at startup on your Pi. I'll leave a link to the website and tutorial down below. Using a Pi Zero makes this project more portable, but you could also use a normal Raspberry Pi that's connected to Ethernet if you're not planning on moving around your house too much. Just make sure your controller and your main computer are both connected to your main Wi-Fi network. Connecting my controller to my computer is one thing, but what about connecting my computer to a TV? I happen to have a 75-foot fiber optic HDMI cable that connects my computer to my TV, but I know that for most people that's not practical. First, these kinds of cables are pretty ugly to look at, and if you're trying to live a wire-free life, that's not exactly an ideal solution. And second, a lot of people probably don't have the luxury of keeping their computer so close to their TV in the first place. Plus, most people don't want to buy a $70 HDMI cable just to play video games on a big screen. However, I propose a solution in which you don't have to buy anything. If you have a smartphone, odds are there are adapters for it that enable you to get an HDMI signal out of it and plug a USB device in. If so, then I recommend using Parsec for in-home streaming from your computer to your TV. Parsec is free to use and works great for video signals sharing a Wi-Fi connection. It even looks better than Steam in-home streaming, and you don't just have to take my word for it. Take a look at this comparison of Steam streaming and Parsec, and you decide which one looks better. Plus, Parsec has multiple controller support, which means you can play multiplayer games from your computer to your couch, all without any cables. So we've talked about wireless hacks for your games and peripherals, but I think wireless headphones are another really fun DIY project. You've probably seen these little Bluetooth transceivers in the car audio section at your favorite big box store, but what you might not have realized is that these little dongers are perfectly good at plugging into headphones as well as car stereos. I picked up this little guy at Best Buy for 20 bucks and a little two-way adapter I grabbed off the shelf at a thrift store. Plugging this in, I was blown away at the quality of this thing. Small Bluetooth devices are getting better and cheaper all the time, and odds are you may even have one of these kicking around. I connected this to my home stereo system to watch TV shows without disturbing my girlfriend, and I was honestly shocked at both the range I could walk around and the quality of the audio coming through this. Basically, I could just chuck the majority of the cables of my headphones into my pocket and do chores while listening to my television wirelessly. These are fairly powerful, though I will say they can't run every pair of headphones. I tried plugging in my HD6XXs, and while I wasn't exactly disappointed with the volume, the small amount of power this little thing outputs just doesn't make higher-end headphones sound very good. Average wired headphones or earbuds though, those will absolutely sing out of one of these little adapters. There's been a heavy focus in this video on consuming and interacting with content, but what about creating it? Well, luckily enough, I have a solution for that too. If you're anything like me, then your first video camera was probably your phone. But if you're planning on getting into more advanced filmmaking, you're likely going to need to upgrade to a slightly better camera pretty quickly. This usually makes your phone an obsolete part of your video production, but that doesn't have to be the case. You can actually use your phone as a viewfinder for your camera using nothing but an HDMI cable, a cheap USB capture card, and a Type-C to Type-A adapter. Then just install an Android app that allows you to see USB cameras. I personally use the simply named USB camera, and voila, you have a high-resolution viewfinder for a fraction of what they normally cost. Now, at first blush, this might not sound like a wireless hack, but do you remember that program we used earlier, VirtualHere? Remember what I said about how it works with webcams? All of a sudden, you have yourself a wireless link to exactly what your camera is seeing, from anywhere. How cool is that? You can actually direct the way professionals are supposed to, sitting on your ass, telling someone else what to do.
It's me!
And that's all I got. 5 wireless hacks that are actually useful. Hopefully you learned something today, and if you did, maybe let me know in the comments. Also, if you like this video, stay tuned for the next one where I compare every version of the Oculus Rift to see which one is the best value today. It's gonna be outro music playing, I don't need to...
You don't need any sort of outro?
I already said comment if you learned something.
Yeah, but like, you don't have a saying that you say or something?
No. Cables. It's too zoomed in. Thick and black.
I think it was
Cables. Cables. It's too zoomed in.
What's the first part? He looked up from his computer and then he saw them. Black, thick. What the f is that? He looked up He looked up from his computer and then he saw them. Black, thick, like spider's webs. Wrapped. He looked up from his computer. Shock in his eyes. What is that? What is it? He looked up from his computer and then he saw them. Black, thick, just like spider webs. I can do it! He looked up from his computer and then he saw them. Black, thick, like spider's webs wrapped around his wrists and ankles. Cables, cables, cables. Now that's over.